There's a big debate in India at this moment about whether the dip that we've seen in economic growth in the second quarter of this fiscal, is it a short-term phenomena caused by the elections, caused by the pullback in capex because of the general elections, or is this more cyclical? Where do you come out on this deeply contentious debate? Short-term with an immediate recovery, or more cyclical and structural?
Well, one quarter it's very hard to be assured that you have the right answer. But for some time, I have worried about the strength of consumption, which has been less than normal over the last year and a half, 2 years. What has instead compensated is infrastructure spending, which undoubtedly the government has done a lot of, which has been very successful in elevating growth rates. But of course, what was missing last quarter? It was infrastructure spending. And so you could see that, when that's taken off, the economy is weaker than we thought it was. The other component that's important to focus on is earlier the weakness was in the lower middle class consumption and the consumption of the poor. Now you're seeing upper middle class consumption slow down somewhat. So my sense is, broadly speaking, what is the reason for consumption slowing, especially when the stock market till recently was quite buoyant? It has to be concerns about economic future, which means things like jobs. Do we have reasonable jobs? Are our children getting well employed? Do we feel confident enough about the future to spend? And you can see a lot of spending was being supported by borrowing, the unsecured borrowing that the RBI cracked down on. So these are all signs that at the edges, all is not well. Now, that doesn't mean we plummet in terms of growth. I still think our baseline is about 6. But 6 is not enough because we're not creating the jobs for those young people coming in.
India's growth numbers demonstrate the dependence on government capital expenditure. We've been waiting for private investment to kickstart. Capacity utilization has been in the mid-70s, which is typically when you see a fresh investment cycle kickstart. It hasn't happened fully so far, even though the likes of Neelkant Mishra and others say they can see some green shoots. What's your reading? Will we see a full-fledged investment cycle? Why is it being delayed? When does it start?
It's been delayed for a long time, right? I mean, when I was governor 8 years ago, I used to worry about why isn't investment coming back on. And there too, we were flirting with the 70, 75. We said, when it hits 75, it's going to come in. Didn't quite come in. That's, I think, the big puzzle. Why is private industry not investing? Partly, partly the answer is positive. It's because they've become more productive, they're using their capital better, etc. But partly the answer is negative, that they're not sure of strong demand going forward and not preparing in time. Because you would think if they see demand down the line, they should be preparing well in advance. And they don't seem to be. So it is a big source of worry. It would be nice if that came on board. Maybe part of the worry is with Indian exports also, that with the tariff situation. But of course, the tariff situation is more post-US election. But I do think this is a really big concern and a puzzle. I don't have a quick answer to why they're not doing it.
The fact that it's a puzzle is something for me to say. You're supposed to have the answers. If you were, in Finance Ministry or RBI dealing with this situation where capacity utilization has been in the mid-70s, despite the reduction in corporate taxes, private investment hasn't really kickstarted in a big way except for some green shoots in some sectors. What are your policy recommendations? How can we change that?
So, as you know, investment is a lot about animal spirits. It's about the sense of ebullience, the confidence that private industry has about the future, and also involves a certain amount of risk taking. I don't quite know if demand will be there, but let me invest. And in fact, what happens is you get a virtuous circle. Because they invest, because they create jobs, there's a sense of confidence that permeates the economy and they invest. I would say early 2000s, in the previous NDA government, you saw that confidence building up. When you talk to private industry, it was, we can beat the world. I don't sense the same kind of confidence anymore. It's no longer we can beat the world, but we need protection against all those guys who have, they have supports from the government, etc. We're talking again of industrial policy. We've talked about the PLI scheme before, but we need crutches. And that wasn't the case in the early 2000s. So it seems to me that part of the answer is private industry itself hasn't got that confidence to go out and invest, which it needs. Now, I don't know if it's tax cuts. We've, as you said, already cut the tax rate on private corporations quite a bit. I don't know if it's investment incentives, but it has to be more a sense that we can be world beaters. And that's disappeared for some reason.
Is there any way that can be changed? Because a lot of it is just spirits, right? You said animal spirits. Can any policy or nudge impact that?
No. I think you can talk a good game as a politician and say we're going to grow. But, I mean, these are hard-bitten business people. And unless they see the underpinnings, or they have this animal spirits from somewhere, it's going to be very hard to get them to put their money in the ground. So I think the government was doing what it could on the physical capital side, that is infrastructure spending. I wonder, and I've been saying this again and again, whether we can do more on the human capital side. That is, take, the fact that right now I was meeting a NGO here. He was saying, we've got all these bright kids, really poor kids. We identified them. They're really smart, but they can't get into the IITs. They can't get into the tech colleges. So we have a thin layer of very good schools, very good universities. Can we expand that? Because that's where we're getting our longer term sort of the people who are going to these GCCs, the people who are going to top, who are creating new jobs. So maybe it's to shift the focus of government spending. We talked about skilling in the last budget. I'd love to see how we're doing there, but we need to do far more.